You've spent decades saving for retirement. You've built up a nest egg. Maybe it's 500,000, maybe it's $1 million, maybe it's $2 million. And now you're finally ready to retire. You want to stop working and start living off your investments. But here's the question that keeps you up at night. How much can you actually withdraw without running out of money? How do you know if you're taking too much? How do you avoid the nightmare scenario of outliving your savings? And this is where most people turn to something called the 4% rule. You've probably heard of it. Financial advisors love it. Retirement calculators use it. It's become gospel in the retirement planning world. The idea is simple. You withdraw 4% of your portfolio in the first year of retirement and then adjust that amount for inflation every year after. And supposedly, if you follow this rule, your money will last 30 years, maybe longer. Sounds great, right? Sounds safe? Well, here's what nobody tells you. The 4% rule might be completely wrong for your situation. It might cause you to run out of money early or leave millions on the table that you could have been enjoying. And by the time you finish this video, you'll understand exactly why the 4% rule works, when it fails, and what you should actually be doing instead. Let me start by explaining where the 4% rule comes from, because most people just accept it without understanding the research behind it. The rule comes from a study done in the mid-1990s by a financial advisor named William Bengen. He looked at historical market returns going back to 1926. He analyzed every possible 30-year retirement period. And he asked a simple question. What withdrawal rate would have allowed a retiree to never run out of money in the worst-case scenario? And the answer he found was 4%. In the worst historical periods, the absolute worst combinations of market crashes and inflation and bad timing, a 4% withdrawal rate with annual inflation adjustments would have lasted at least 30 years. In most periods, it lasted much longer. In some periods, the portfolio actually grew even while taking withdrawals. But 4% was the safe number, the number that worked even in the worst cases. And that became the rule. Now, here's what's important to understand. The 4% rule was designed for a very specific scenario, a 30-year retirement, a 60% stocks and 40% bonds, annual withdrawals that increase with inflation every single year regardless of market performance, and historical market returns that match what happened from 1926 to the 1990s. Those are a lot of assumptions, and if your situation doesn't match those assumptions, if any of these variables are different, the 4% rule might not work for you. In fact, it probably won't work for you, because here's the reality. Most people's retirements don't look like the textbook scenario that the 4% rule was designed for. And blindly following a rule that doesn't fit your situation is a recipe for disaster. So let's break down the problems with the 4% rule, because there are several and they're significant. Problem number 1. 30 years might not be long enough. When the 4% rule was created, life expectancies were shorter. A 65-year-old retiree planning for a 30-year retirement would make it to 95. That seemed plenty safe. But today, people are living longer. If you retire at 60 and live to 95, that's 35 years. If you live to 100, that's 40 years. And the 4% rule wasn't tested for 40-year retirements. In fact, when you run the numbers for longer time periods, the safe withdrawal rate drops. Some studies suggest that for a 40-year retirement, you might need to use a 3.5% rule or even a 3% rule to be truly safe. So if you're planning to retire early, if you're in good health, if longevity runs in your family, the 4% rule might be too aggressive. You might be withdrawing too much and not realize it until it's too late.
Problem number 2. Market conditions today are different from history. The 4% rule is based on historical returns from 1926 to the 1990s, but the future might not look like the past. In fact, we have good reason to believe it won't. Interest rates over the past 15 years have been near zero. Bond yields have been the lowest in history. Stock valuations have been elevated compared to historical averages. When you start with low bond yields and high stock valuations, future returns are likely to be lower than historical averages. And if returns are lower, a 4% withdrawal rate becomes riskier. Some researchers have argued that 3% or 3.5% is more appropriate given current market conditions. So, if you're retiring today in this environment, you might need to be more conservative than the 4% rule suggests. Problem number 3. Sequence of returns risk. This is the big one that destroys most people's retirement plans, and almost nobody understands it. Here's how it works. The order in which you experience investment returns matters enormously when you're taking withdrawals. If you have great returns in the early years of retirement and poor returns later, you'll probably be fine. But if you have poor returns in the early years, especially if you retire right before a major market crash, you might never recover, even if the average returns over your retirement are good. Let me give you an example to show you how brutal this can be. Imagine two people. Both retire with $1 million. Both use the 4% rule, so they withdraw $40,000 in year one and adjust for inflation each year. Both experience the exact same returns over 30 years, just in different order. Person A gets good returns in the first 10 years and bad returns in the later years. Person B gets bad returns first, including a major crash in years 2 and 3, and good returns later. Person A ends up with plenty of money left after 30 years. Person B runs out of money in year 25, even though they had the same average return. Same withdrawal rate, same average returns, completely different outcomes because of the sequence. And this is terrifying because you have zero control over what the market does in your first few years of retirement. If you happen to retire in 1999, right before the dot-com crash, or in 2007, right before the financial crisis, or in late 2021 before the 2022 bear market, you're starting your retirement at the worst possible time. And the 4% rule might not save you. You might follow it perfectly and still run out of money because the sequence was wrong. This is why timing matters. This is why retiring into a bear market is so dangerous. And this is why blind adherence to the 4% rule without considering market conditions is risky. Problem number 4. The 4% rule assumes you increase your withdrawal every single year for inflation. But that's not how most people actually behave, and it's not necessarily how you should behave. In reality, most retirees are flexible with their spending. If the market crashes, they cut back. If the market does well, they spend a bit more. They don't rigidly increase their spending by 3% every year, regardless of what's happening. And this flexibility is actually a huge advantage. If you're willing to reduce spending in bad years, you can start with a higher withdrawal rate than 4%. Some studies show that if you're willing to cut spending by 10 or 15% in down markets, you could start at 5% or even 5.5%. The flexibility gives you a buffer. It allows you to adapt to conditions. But the traditional 4% rule doesn't account for this flexibility. It assumes you're completely inflexible, which means it might be too conservative for people who are willing to adjust.
Problem number 5. The 4% rule assumes a fixed asset allocation, 60% stocks, 40% bonds, rebalanced regularly. But is that the right allocation for everyone? Probably not. If you're more conservative, if you want 70% bonds, your safe withdrawal rate is lower. If you're more aggressive, if you want 80% stocks, your safe withdrawal rate might be higher, but with more volatility. And the optimal allocation might change over time. Maybe you start more conservative and get more aggressive as you age and your time horizon shortens, or maybe you do the opposite. The point is, one size doesn't fit all, and the 4% rule is based on one specific allocation that might not be right for you. So with all these problems, with all these limitations, what should you actually do? How should you think about withdrawal rates in retirement? Let me give you a framework that's more realistic and more adaptable than the simple 4% rule. First, understand your personal situation. How long is your retirement likely to be? If you're retiring at 65 and have average health, maybe 30 years is reasonable. But if you're retiring at 55 or you're in great health or longevity runs in your family, you need to plan for 40 years or more, and that changes your safe withdrawal rate significantly. Do the math for your specific situation. Don't just blindly use 4% because that's what everyone says. Second, consider current market conditions. If we're in a low interest rate environment with elevated stock valuations like we've been in for years, be more conservative. Maybe 3.5% is safer. If we're in a high interest rate environment with depressed stock prices, maybe 4.5% is fine. The withdrawal rate that was safe in 1980 with 13% bond yields is not the same as what's safe today with 3% bond yields. Adjust for reality, not for history. Third,
Pay attention to sequence of returns risk. The most dangerous time in your retirement is the first 5 to 10 years. If you retire into a bull market, great, you're probably fine with 4% or maybe even more. But if you retire into a bear market, if we're heading into a recession, if stocks are crashing in your first few years of retirement, you need to be much more conservative. Consider starting at 3% or 3.5% until the market recovers. Or better yet, keep working part-time for a few more years to get through the downturn. Those first few years are make or break. Protect yourself during that critical period.
Fourth, build in flexibility. Don't commit to a fixed spending amount that increases every year regardless of conditions. Instead, use a dynamic withdrawal strategy. In good years, when your portfolio is up, take a bit more. In bad years, when your portfolio is down, tighten your belt and take less. This flexibility dramatically increases the sustainability of your retirement. Studies show that retirees who are willing to cut spending by 10 to 15% in down years can start with withdrawal rates of 5% or higher. The flexibility is the secret weapon that the rigid 4% rule ignores. Fifth, consider a guardrails approach. This is a more sophisticated strategy where you set upper and lower bounds for your spending. You calculate a base withdrawal amount, let's say 4%, but then you set rules. If your portfolio grows significantly, you allow yourself to increase spending up to a ceiling, maybe 4.5% or 5% of the current balance. If your portfolio drops significantly, you decrease spending down to a floor, maybe 3% or 3.5%. This approach gives you flexibility while preventing extreme behaviors. You're not locked into a fixed amount, but you're also not making impulsive decisions every year. You have clear rules that guide your adjustments. Sixth, think about different phases of retirement. Your spending probably won't be constant throughout retirement. Most people spend more in early retirement when they're healthy and active and traveling. Then spending decreases in mid-retirement as you slow down. Then it might increase again in late retirement due to healthcare costs. So why would you use the same withdrawal rate for 30 years? Consider starting higher in early retirement, maybe 4.5 or 5%, knowing you'll reduce it later. Or start lower and increase it as you age and your time horizon shortens. Match your withdrawal strategy to your actual expected spending pattern. Seventh, incorporate other income sources. The 4% rule typically assumes your portfolio is your only source of income, but most people have Social Security, some have pensions, some have rental income or part-time work. If you have other income sources, you don't need to withdraw as much from your portfolio. Maybe you only need to withdraw 2% or 3% because Social Security covers your basic expenses. Or maybe you delay taking withdrawals entirely until you're 70 or 75 because you have other income. The point is, the 4% rule assumes your portfolio is doing all the work. But in reality, most people have multiple income sources, and that changes everything. Eighth, think about your legacy goals. Do you want to leave money to your kids? Do you have a specific amount you want to pass on? Or are you planning to spend it all? The 4% rule is designed to not run out of money. But in most historical scenarios, it actually leaves a lot of money on the table. If you run the simulations, in many cases, people following the 4% rule die with more money than they started with. If that's fine with you, great. But if your goal is to enjoy your money and you're not worried about leaving an inheritance, you could probably withdraw more, maybe 5% or 5.5%, with the understanding that you might deplete your portfolio in your 90s. It's a personal choice about values and priorities. Now, let me give you some specific scenarios to illustrate how this works in practice. Scenario 1. You're 65, you have $1 million, you have good health, you expect to live to 95, and you're retiring into a strong bull market with stocks near all-time highs. In this case, I'd probably suggest starting at around 3.5 to 4%. Yes, the bull market is good, but high valuations mean lower future returns, and a 30-year retirement is long. So maybe you start with $35,000 to $40,000 per year. You build in flexibility to reduce that if the market crashes, and you plan to adjust as you go. Scenario 2. You're 55, you have $2 million, you're in excellent health, longevity runs in your family, and you're planning for a 40-plus year retirement. In this case, you need to be much more conservative, maybe 3% or even 2.5%,
because you need that money to last potentially 50 years. So you might start with $50,000 to $60,000 per year from your portfolio. But you also might work part-time for a while to extend your savings. Or you might plan to tap Social Security later to reduce portfolio withdrawals. The point is, 40 years requires more caution. Scenario 3. You're 70. You have $500,000. You have a pension that covers your basic expenses and Social Security on top of that. In this case, you might only need $20,000 to $30,000 per year from your portfolio to supplement your other income. That's 4 to 6%. And since you have other income covering your essentials, you can be more aggressive with your portfolio withdrawals. If the market crashes and your portfolio drops, you're fine because your pension and Social Security keep paying, so you have more flexibility. Scenario 4. You're 62. You have $800,000, you're in poor health with a family history of heart disease, and you realistically might only have 15 to 20 years. In this case, you could probably withdraw more aggressively, maybe 5 or 6%, because you're not planning for 30 years. You want to enjoy your money while you can. So you might take $40,000 to $50,000 per year and accept that the portfolio might run out if you live longer than expected. But that's an informed choice based on your circumstances. See how different these scenarios are? This is why the 4% rule is too simplistic. It treats everyone the same. 65-year-old and 55-year-old, same rule. Healthy person and sick person, same rule. Person with a pension and person without, same rule. But that doesn't make sense. Your withdrawal strategy should be customized to your specific situation, your health, your other income, your goals, your flexibility, and current market conditions. Now, let me address the elephant in the room. What if you're already retired and you realize you've been withdrawing too much? What if you've been taking 5 or 6% because you didn't know better, and now you're realizing you might be in trouble? First, don't panic. Assess where you are. Run the numbers. How much do you have left? How many years do you need it to last? What's your minimum spending requirement versus your ideal spending? Can you cut expenses? Can you generate additional income? Often there are solutions. Maybe you downsize your house and free up equity. Maybe you take on part-time work. Maybe you delay Social Security to increase your benefit later. Maybe you cut travel and entertainment temporarily until your portfolio recovers. The point is, it's not hopeless, but you need to act now, not wait until the money's gone.
And if you're not retired yet, if you're still in the accumulation phase, pay attention to this. Because the amount you need to retire is directly tied to your expected spending and your withdrawal rate. If you want to spend $60,000 per year and you use the 4% rule, you need $1.5 million. But if you can be flexible and use a dynamic strategy that averages 4.5%, you only need $1.3 million. That's $200,000 less you need to save. On the flip side, if you're planning for a 40-year retirement and need to use 3% to be safe, you need $2 million. Understanding these numbers changes how much you need to save and when you can actually afford to retire. Let me also address one more critical point: taxes. The 4% rule typically doesn't account for taxes. If your money is in a traditional 401k or IRA, your withdrawals are fully taxable. So if you need $40,000 to spend, you might need to withdraw $50,000 to have $40,000 after taxes. That's actually a 5% withdrawal rate, not 4%. This is huge. This is why Roth conversions and tax planning matter so much in retirement. If you can get money into Roth accounts before retirement, you can withdraw tax-free, and your 4% goes further. Or if you can structure your withdrawals efficiently, taking from taxable accounts first, then tax-deferred, then Roth, you can minimize taxes and make your money last longer. So here's my final guidance. The 4% rule is a starting point, not a destination. It's a useful rough guideline that tells you you're probably in the ballpark, but don't follow it blindly. Understand your specific situation. Consider your retirement timeline, your health, your flexibility, your other income, your legacy goals, current market conditions, and tax implications. Build a withdrawal strategy that's customized to you. Use dynamic adjustments based on market performance. Be conservative in the early years when sequence risk is highest. Be flexible and willing to adjust spending when needed. And most importantly, monitor and adjust as you go. Your retirement will last decades. Conditions will change, markets will go up and down, your health will change, your spending needs will evolve. So revisit your withdrawal strategy every year, make adjustments, stay flexible. Because the biggest mistake you can make is setting a withdrawal rate at age 65 and never reconsidering it for the next 30 years. The world changes, your situation changes, your plans should change too. That's how you make your money last. That's how you avoid running out too early or leaving millions on the table. And that's how you actually achieve a secure, comfortable retirement that lasts as long as you do.